Hello friends, welcome to the first episode of Braai Stories. Friends, I've had so many people asking me to do my videos in English. I decided with all my friends living in England and so on that I will be focusing on the South African braai in my second tongue, English. Friends, I used to live in London for a long time, and with many of my friends we often did braais on the banks of the River Thames. Sometimes we did braais in parks. We had a great time. I had a small transportable braai which I would normally carry like a suitcase to a park, open it there, and we would have a wonderful braai. Friends, you can do braais wherever you want in the world, but there are a few basic principles. In my experience, people see Afrikaans people coming from a sheep farm like me as people that know what they do. So I'm here to share a few skills with you. I only have daughters, so for me it is fantastic to use technology to show you some braai skills and to enjoy life the way South Africans love enjoying life. So friends, today we're gonna keep it very simple. I'll be teaching you a lot of tricks on braais, from barbecuing or braai or whatever you want to call it, ribs, chops, steaks, you name it. I will show you that. I will also show you our famous traditional potjies. But let's begin at the beginning. Guys, you always need a good fire. I came from a farm. We never had fire lighters, so we would start using newspaper like this to begin our fire. What you would normally do is you'll take it, you'll fold it like this, and you'll make a few of these pieces of paper and you'll put them ready for your braai. Once you've got about 5 or 6 of these knobs there, you will put fine pieces of wood. Twigs and grass is sometimes a very good thing to put on top here. I don't have it, I live in the city, but I could find these fine ones, so we will put those over these pieces of newspaper when I'm finished, and then I'll show you the next step. Friends, so here in South Africa the best wood you can find for building a fire is kameeldoorn wood. Comes from the Kalahari where I was growing up. So normally when you have this bunch of newspaper here, you'll put 2 pieces of kameeldoorn wood like this, and you'll put some of the fine ones on top of the wood like this. Now I like enjoying my Springboks lighter to light these kind of fires. I'm a traditional South African, so I like doing things in a proper and in a manly way. Hello friends, as you can see the fire is going now, so I'm starting to put the thick pieces of wood on the side with the fine dry ones in the middle. And now all we do, friends, is we build the fire in a stack like this, almost like a tower. This way the fire acts as a chimney and it draws oxygen from the bottom to the top, ultimately creating the perfect fire. Friends, while we wait for the fire, I might as well share a little story with you. I've had quite a few braais with foreigners before, where they've invited us maybe to come over and whatever. And for some reason, I always end up with the tongs in my hand, and when I ask them, hey, it's your house, I'm the guest, you should be doing the braai, they will always say, hey man, you're a farm boy or an Afrikaans guy, you should do it for us. And I've always been wondering why people have this sort of idea about Afrikaans people. Of course, I always see it as a huge compliment, but then giving it some thought, I might as well tell you a little bit about my own background. And I think for many Afrikaans people, when we grow up, in my case, as I was growing up, there's 2 things we really start to do from an early age. I grew up on a sheep farm, and I remember back in the day, the post would always come with a train on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays. And also, my parents would need someone to go and collect the mail in this post bag that would then kind of hang on a pole, which the guy on the train just dropped off there. Sometimes there would be 2 bags, and in cases like that, you know, your father has ordered something from the Reader's Digest, so we would always be very surprised to see what's in there. So for this reason, we started to drive at a really young age. I think I was about 8, maybe 9, and I could perfectly drive a bakkie, or a car for that matter. The other thing we learned to do from a really early age is to braai. I mean, I was probably 8, 9 years old. We were kind of slaughtering a cow. We were cutting goulash, and I said to Mom, can I please go and make a potjie? And I took a whole lot of meat, 8-9 years of age, and I started cooking from a really, really young age, actually on the fire. So I think we actually in a way learned from quite a young age to be confident, first of all driving, and second of all braaiing. And that's why Afrikaans people do not enjoy it if someone tells them when to turn over the meat or when to lower the grid. So that's just some background. I remember, for example, when I was 12 years old, my dad said to me, "Kortes, we're having about 20 people coming tonight. Your job is you must braai all the meat tonight for the 20 people. And what Dad also wants you to do is, I want you to ensure the guests' glasses are full at all times." And I will never forget, I would be making sure if someone's whiskey was empty, there would automatically be another one with ice in his hand. The meat was braaied perfectly, and for me an amazing thing was at the end of the night, my dad came to me, he turned 40 that night. He came to me, who was 12 at the time, and he said to me, "Kortes, thank you so much, here's a little gift for you." And in a small little leather wallet was a tiny bottle of, what was it? Aftershave, Yardley aftershave, Yardley Gold. And for me, that just motivated, and it gave me even more confidence to do what I love doing best even more. And that's why for me, braaiing is a part of life which you will never take away. In my blood. Friends, and now I can officially report that this fire is burning properly. Get yourself a drink. If you're under 18, get yourself a nice Coke or cool drink and have fun. I am now gonna get ready to prepare the chops that we are gonna be braaiing today. Friends, let's quickly prepare the chops. Chops are no-nonsense food. We want to keep it simple. Friends, I have Karoo lamb chops here, and I have a few pork chops. What I grew up, friends, with proper Karoo chops. So we actually just put salt and white pepper on them as I grew up. But of course, something like a good meat spice is completely optional. So all I am basically doing, friends, I will be putting some salt lightly over the one side of the chops. The next step is you'll add some white pepper very lightly on the chops. And what we as a family quite enjoy is some Worcestershire sauce, very lightly drizzled over the chops. Very lightly, not too heavy, otherwise it overpowers the meat. Friends, then it's time to turn it over and to repeat the process on the other side. Friends, the grid have now been about 10 minutes on the fire. It's now time to clean it. I use a nice wire brush. Remember, if you use a stainless steel grid, like in my case, you use a stainless steel brush. Do not use a steel brush. It must be a stainless steel brush. In the case of a normal steel grid, you can use a normal steel brush. Once I've brushed it, I use a piece of old newspaper again, and I wipe all the fatty deposits of the last braai off. Look at that. Now I know my grid is properly clean. The coals are ready. I'm just going to spread these coals open at the bottom. It's not too many coals. I don't want to waste wood unnecessarily. And I'm just going to be lowering the grid, in my case, to the lowest level. It is now about 10 to 15 centimeters from the coals. I will now quickly put the chops onto the grid. And friends, when I started braaiing, my father told me that it's always a good idea to turn chops whenever they smoke nicely. So I will leave them on here until they smoke nicely, and then I will be coming back to you. Friends, I just noticed my fire is a little bit hot, so now I will just adjust it to a higher level. When you're a braaier, you continually have to watch your coals and make sure things are under control. So the fire will now die away and the chops will continue to braai nicely. I want to confirm the height is now about 30 centimeters above the coals. When these chops smoke nicely, I will come back to you when we turn them over. Cooking really nicely. I see the flames just wouldn't die away today, so I'm just opening it a little bit more with less coals. And because it smokes nicely, it is now the time to turn these chops over for the first time. I'm sure you will agree with me that these chops looks absolutely amazing so far. Always ensure there's a little bit of space between your chops, because if there's space like this, the fats will become nice and crispy on the edges. Friends, as you can see, the chops are smoking very nicely again, so I'll turn them over so they're on the first side for the second time. And friends, this process we will just repeat so that it dries about 3 times on each side, and then your chops should be in a perfect condition. Today we are going to be enjoying these chops with what we call in Afrikaans roosterkoeke. It is breads you make from dough. You form them and then you braai them, such as these ones that you can see here. Very nice, very tasty, highly popular all over South Africa. I'll teach you in a different episode how to make these ones. Friends, these chops are enjoying the braai. Just look at all that smoke. All the smoke, of course, are causing the perfuming of the meat, giving it that lovely smoky flavor. I've turned it over for the last time, so at the same time I'm putting a clean pan on the side of the braai just to get it mildly hot, so that we can put the hot chops into there and put the lid on to rest it for 5 minutes before we eat. Hello friends, the casserole is now nice and mildly hot. It is time to take off the meat. So I'll begin with these chops and I'll take them all off. I put the lamb on this side and the pork on that side. Just look at that nice crackling on the side of the chop, the pork chop. And now I can put the casserole's lid on. I'm gonna take it off the grid, so it's off the temperature, to rest for 5 minutes before we eat. I'm now also gonna take off these little roaster cookies, as we call them, and I'm gonna cover them with a clean cloth so they are ready for the dinner table. Friends, I can assure you these chops are gonna be phenomenal. Yeah, friends, this meat is so tender and so juicy. Absolutely outstanding. See you next time in episode 2 of Braai Stories. Goodbye. Vrienden. Koningskos. Prachtige braai. Heerlijk. Oh, ja, hulle praat nou Afrikaans.